Hey everybody, welcome to today's live stream. I hope everybody's doing good today. So we're going to do a little bit of resin casting. I haven't done any handle blanks for a while, and I thought I want to start making some, so I thought why not do some on the stream. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be casting in around 1.5 to 2 inch block size things, and I have some wood chunks here that we're going to stick in there and then mix in some resin. So it should be pretty fun. And one of the projects actually that we're going to do, it's not a handle per se. I've had this little piece of, I think this was red mallee burl. I think I got this from Two Tree Boys wood. It was part of that big gigantic, those huge ones that I was trying to make the bowling ball out of. But I had this and I wanted to make a gear shift knob for my truck. Mine is falling apart. Well, it's not really, the structure of it, the plastic thing is still there, but all the leather and everything is falling off. And so I've wanted to replace it. Obviously I can turn them and you know, cast stuff. So that's going to be one of the projects that we're going to do today. This has been on the list forever. And part of the reason that I never did it is I didn't know what I wanted to do to the burl, or, you know, like what effects or anything like that. So I think we're just going to kind of wing it. I want to get this project going and get me a new gear shift knob in my truck. So it should be pretty fun today. I always love doing little hybrid blanks. And then this is the other piece that I have. It's dye stabilized, kind of weird chunk. I did a little bit of red, and I might have mixed yellow in there. I don't know, but it's got some fun stuff going on. So I've been kind of baking these things in the oven for a few hours today. The dye stabilized pieces, I'm not worried about them with moisture. They don't have any in it. I already dried them and stabilized them. The red mallee burl, I don't think that was stabilized. There's really no reason to stabilize super dense hardwoods, you know, like burls and stuff. So like most of your Aussie burls, Australian, those things are so hard and dense that there's just no point in stabilizing it. It's not going to give you any advantages at all. Realistically, it's probably going to make things worse because it's going to make it possibly harder and harder to turn. And you know, you got to deal with, well, you're going to waste some resin, some cactus juice, stabilizing it. So if you're not getting any benefit, what's the point of putting the time and the effort and the money into it? But you do need to dry them out. So that thing's pretty dry. It was pretty dry anyway, but it's been sitting out in the shop. So I'm happy to put that in the oven for a few hours, just to suck out any extra moisture that might be in there. I'm probably going to be using epoxy today. So, you know, Alumilite clear, that one is a lot more sensitive to moisture. Epoxies typically aren't as sensitive to it, but if there is moisture in there, what ends up happening is your resin heats up and it starts curing, and you get air bubbles. Even if it's in the pressure pot, the moisture is leaking out and you end up with these air bubbles from the moisture. Basically, it's turning into a gas. So there's still issues. Even if you're using epoxy and it's not very sensitive to it, there's still problems with it if you don't seal it off or fully dry it or stabilize it, you know, do something about that moisture. So anyway, that's what we got going on. And the other thing that I have are some results from the Pokemon cards. And I wanted to share a couple things. I did something, I found out some things, and I did a couple different things that I wanted to kind of share with you guys. And I still have 2 cards left that I still haven't gotten one that I really consider is like perfect. So I'm kind of learning my way with this stuff. The big problem is you have to somehow glue down the card onto that first layer, and I've had some issues with it. That sealer was, I don't know, the Alumilite's amazing sealer. This stuff would be fabulous if you need to seal off wood quick. But in my shop, it's very dry here, and it really kind of dries too quick for what I'm trying to do. I need something with a little bit longer working time, it seems like. So I don't know. I had some issues where there was some kind of shiny spots. I already showed you guys that. But for anybody that wasn't here last week, I'll show you what's going on with all these. But I got really good results with the other ones. So let's stop real quick and see. There's tons of people here already. Dominic was first. Way to go. And Kevin Carpenter. Yes, there's people here. You guys were messing with him. And Steve's here, Jim and Richard, Mike McEwen, how's it going? And Lance is here, how's it going? Jim, Ann, and Jean's here, nice. Who else? David's here, nice, welcome. And Kim, I don't know, I might have said Kim already, I'm not sure, but hey, how's it going, Kim? And Twyla's here, awesome. And did I see Jalissa? Maybe not. Anyway, and Herb's Scrolling Station. How's it going? Welcome. Oh, and TJ's here too. I just saw you. Cool. So anyway, welcome everybody. This one should be pretty fun. We can let the chat, so if anybody wants to pick colors. So for my gear shift knob, I'm going to work on the colors and stuff like that. I have some ideas in my head, so I'm just going to go for that one myself. But for the other two, there'll be two castings up for grabs. So if anybody wants to super chat and pick some colors for those, go right ahead. I think what we're going to do first, I'll show you the Pokemon card stuff real quick. Then I think I'm going to add a little bit of effects to the top of the gear shift knob, that Aussie burl piece. We'll just do a kind of a quick thing, you know, on that one, just to add a little bit of something on top of it, and then we'll probably cast that last. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on, we'll do the two after I've done the painting on stuff for my gear shift knob. Then we'll do those two that you guys can pick colors on, and then we'll finish up with that gear shift knob casting. That one's mostly, it's going to be clear for the most part. I'm just going to add a little bit of effects to it. Now, one thing I want to mention is my dust collector is supposed to be being delivered today. I am extremely frustrated with FedEx and the way that their delivery on thousands of dollars of equipment works. I've never had this kind of an issue where, you know, when you're getting like, you know, like lift gate service and it's like a huge truck coming to your place, they usually call you and they're like, hey, here's a window of, you know, a couple hours, 4 hours, maybe something. The only thing I've gotten is, and I didn't even get a notice with tracking. The only thing I have is it'll be delivered by the end of the day. And I'm like, okay, great. I've tried to call them. They don't answer. I'm just like, so you know what the chances are. That guy's going to show up in the middle of my stream, most likely. So who knows? But if that happens, I'm probably going to have to stop the stream. Hopefully it won't be in the middle of casting. Pretty much if it is, I'm going to tell him to go come back on Friday. But I just wanted to let you guys know I'm very excited to get this thing, but man, this delivery thing has been really kind of terrible. And I've dealt with them twice. So today the dust collector and all the rest of the like accessories, hanging equipment, all that stuff's coming. I already got all the Nordfab duct and they didn't send me anything. Nobody did. And so it just showed up and luckily our neighbor took it because I had no clue. And I walk in one day and it's sitting in our shop because the guy brought it over. So anyway, I'm very, I guess maybe I'm complaining, I guess, but I'm saying this to, if you guys have to have something like that, like a machine or equipment delivered on like a big FedEx truck, watch out because it doesn't seem like they do a whole lot of like contacting you. I mean, some of the shipping companies, they'll call you when they're on their way. Like they're like, hey, we're like 30 minutes away. This has been horrible. So just wanted to kind of share that. I'm not very happy with it. It's not Oneida's fault. It's FedEx. Like the way that they do stuff is just not awesome. I don't think there's way better shipping companies, and most tool companies use like just kind of some sort of ground transport that's not like UPS or FedEx. It's some other, you know, but like kind of private or whatever company, and they usually do a lot better with this type of thing. So just warning you guys. So anyway, yeah, FedEx, not my favorite thing. Although I don't really like UPS either. They kind of mess things up. So I gotta be honest, the post office, because that's what I ship that's what I ship pretty much everything that I sell, all the pen blanks and stuff. For the most part, there's been a few weird things going on with the COVID stuff, and you know, shipping's been kind of weird. But overall, they have lost not very many packages, and most things get there on time. I've had a few issues here and there, but they've been pretty good. So, you know, but we're not dealing with like 500-pound, you know, equipment or anything like that. So it's just pen blanks. So anyway, hey, Doug's here. What's up, buddy? How's it going, man? All right, so let's switch cameras. Let's get going here. Let's show you guys what's going on. So I got one that we can demold too. I thought that would be kind of fun. I don't think I did that on the stream. I'm not sure. So let's see. Is this the first one? No, this is the first one. And one thing that I did with this is, you see this is one that I demolded, and what I did, this was the second card. So we poured the first half and then I cast the rest of this the next day, and hopefully you guys can see that. See how the card's kind of bent? I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's kind of bowed, and you can kind of definitely see that. On this one, everything turned out amazing. I did not use any sealer on this. I just stuck it in there. I poured a little bit of resin down just to kind of get it wet, and then tried to like push it down, but the card still bent back because they were a little bit bowed. but you can see the bow, and I'm not even sure. I would imagine that underneath down here, where you can kind of see a gap, I'm guessing that there's actually no resin at all. It popped up and nothing was really holding it down. I'm not 100% sure on that. It could have flowed around and down under, but that's one issue that I had with it. Now this card turned out really good. There's nothing that I'm really particularly unhappy with, except for that kind of bowing, but I think I can get this better. And so I have a couple more cards left that I tried to kind of bend and flatten out, and then I stuck a weight on them. And so I'm hoping that I can get one that's a little bit better if it's flat. Now, one other thing I want to mention is, I don't know if you guys can really see this. See how it's kind of dished in here? You know, like I can knock down these edges, but it's still going to be kind of dished unless I like sand it flat, which I don't really want to have to go through and do all that stuff. It's actually, I find that the resin as it is going to be the glossiest. You know, I can sand this and do all that, but it's really kind of hard to polish something as perfect as like the top of just resin. So what I tried to do on this one was add a layer of resin and to kind of fill that bow. And it turned out okay. I think one of my problems was I probably needed to add a little bit more resin, but I'm not 100% sure if you're really gonna get super amazing results by like, they call that doming, by adding more resin on the top. It will fill in the dish, but it's not particularly like perfect. So I don't know that I'm gonna really get away with not having to kind of sand things if I want it to be dead perfect. So just wanted to kind of share that. I think on this one, or whichever one I go with, I'm most likely just going to kind of knock down the edges and get it pretty close. But I don't think I'm going to do the doming because I think it's better just leaving it the way it is. So we got those two, and like I said, this one turned out great. So obviously with the Pokemon cards, or at least these specific ones, I don't know if there's different ones in the Pokemon line, you don't need sealer. They didn't absorb anything. Now on this one, this is the third one, and this is actually a card that I put sealer on both sides before I did anything. Then I did the you know, just resin. I didn't try to glue it down with the sealer. I just sealed it. And you know, obviously we've kind of learned that you don't necessarily need to seal these specific cards, but this turned out pretty good, and you don't see any of the sealant or anything on this. I can't see anything so far. We got some shiny spots on this one, and you can kind of see the sealer. I don't know, there's a good shot of it. It didn't really work out so hot. I think it just was because of the way that I did it. This one turned out pretty good. So as long as you have like fresh resin that you're pushing it into, the sealer literally just disappears. So let's just break this guy open. So all you have to do is just kind of pop it loose. Very simple. This has been sitting for quite a few days now at this point. I'll kind of zoom in just a little bit. There we go. And then you can just, there's tape on the edges, but it usually just kind of pops free. So everything demolds quite easy. Get a non-glary, but you can see, you can't see any of the sealant, and it had a glob of sealant. Like it did not look particularly good. I thought it was going to turn out terrible, but you can't see it at all. I'm trying to get, I can't see any of that sealant. So as long as you do things good and then you put the card down into wet resin, it should work really well. It looks like. This one bowed just a little bit again, but it's not too bad. This one's looking actually really good. I'm pretty happy with this. So, you know, depending on how perfect you need to get things, I mean, I think most people, as long as you're using like a card like this where it's not going to absorb stuff, but even if you were using something that absorbed things, I think that anybody can get pretty decent results. So I'm really nitpicking these because this is something, somebody's buying this thing. It's not like I just kind of made this and it was fun. He is buying it, and you know, I really want to try and get it as perfect as I can possibly get it. So I'm being a little bit harder on myself than I probably need to be. And even he was like, I don't really care. It's just a joke, but still, you know, I want to make it as good as possible. So anyway, pretty awesome. You know, I think that you can do a lot of stuff. And in this case where I was just, you know, wiping on a bunch of sealant on the card, just to seal it off, and then, you know, went for like, so just to make sure everybody understands, again, this was one of those, I poured half of the resin in, let it harden up. I had sealed the card off, but I let that totally dry. I wasn't trying to glue it down. And then I just poured, you know, just a little bit of resin, just made it wet on the surface, and then just kind of pushed it down in there and kind of scraped it, trying to get air bubbles and stuff out from underneath. And then poured the rest of the resin on. I didn't let that first little bit of resin cure. I just poured a little bit down, kind of shoved it down in there and scraped it, trying to get air bubbles or anything off, you know, or out of there. Then just poured all the rest of the resin and let it cure. And this one turned out pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with this. Very good. It's very clear. So anyway, I have 2 cards left. Like I said, I just stuck a weight on it, and these things are pretty darn flat. I mean, they're really not. I kind of bent them a little bit and then just stuck a weight on it that's been sitting there for a few days. So I got 2 more shots, and what I'm hoping is, as long as the card is pretty much flat, I'm not going to get weird bowing and all that stuff, and this should work the way that I've been doing it. One other way that I might try. So I might try just one more the way that I've been doing it. No sealant or anything like that. And then I might try, one thing that I thought of that I might give a shot, give it a try, is pour the resin in, and then while the resin, that first layer, is still wet, then try and just stick the card down on it. I'm not sure if it'll sink or do anything like that, but maybe if the resin's still kind of wet, you know, maybe you'll get it to kind of stick a little bit better on that first layer. So just a few different things to try, but like I said, I think if you're going to try this, if you want to suspend cards doing it this way, I don't think you're going to have too much problem with it, as long as, like I said, depending on how nitpicky you're going to be with it. But, you know, and I don't know if there's other people that can get this done better, you know, and there's other ways that you could do this that I know of. I know Steve McDonald did one where his mold was like vertical. And so at that point, you could hold the card in place and then pour maybe like half or almost all the resin holding the card, and then top it off, and then do your 2 layers, you know, vertically. And as long as you're not going to sand and cut into it, I don't think you're going to see a witness line. So there's different ways to do this, but I had fun, you know, messing with this. It was a fun experiment. I want to try some different things like this. Like I was saying, I have some playing cards that are kind of unique and interesting that I might kind of play around with this stuff and do some more projects with it. I might just make like a regular video of that, basically, rather than, this was kind of, you know, long to watch, and you can only see half of the thing on the stream. Anyway, yeah, and I'll definitely share pictures when I get one like totally finished and it's ready to be sent out, and let you guys know what happens with the other, you know, other things that I do. So let's get these guys out of the way. And then one thing to kind of just touch on with this type of casting, you know, you're really not casting that much resin. And so most epoxies, you're probably going to have to wait at least 2 to 3 days to demold it. It's still going to be like rubbery in a sense, like you could easily dent it. Liquid diamonds was actually really good. I did a test, I think 1 or 2 tests with Amazing Clear Cast, and that stuff took longer, and it does. Amazing Clear Cast has kind of a longer like cure time, let's say, than liquid diamonds. Liquid diamonds, you only really need to leave it in the pressure pot. I think their demold time is about 8 or 9 hours. Compared to when on Amazing Clear Cast, you know, they're both epoxies, but Amazing Clear Cast, they say like 18 hours. So it's like almost like a full day. And that kind of depends on the thickness and all that stuff. Pen blanks, if you're making a big brick of Amazing Clear Cast, you can pull it the next day and it's fine. But if you're doing thinner things, it's going to take longer. And that also means that it's going to be kind of, you know, soft for a little bit longer than some other resins. So liquid diamonds work pretty good, and it's a little bit quicker. Like definitely in 2 days, it's like hard. You can't really dent it with your fingernail at that point. So just wanted to kind of share a couple little thoughts and little things that I'd found while I was doing this. But a pretty fun project. I mean, you can do lots of different stuff with that. I don't think laminating the cards is going to change anything, Twyla. You still have the same issue of, like, what are you trying to solve with laminating? The issue I'm having is trying to get it, you know, maybe that would flatten the card or something, but you'd still have an issue. Like that would show up, like you would see that for sure in resin, so I wouldn't do that. But you still have the issue of getting it like stuck, adhered to that first layer. That's the issue that I'm having, where it kind of bows up a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't laminate it. I don't think that would really fix any of the problems that I've been having. It'll seal it. That, you know, it should seal it. That is one way to do that. But I think that between either using, you know, something like Amazing Sealer or Mod Podge, which I think Mod Podge might have a little bit longer working time than the Amazing Sealer stuff. But the other way to go is just use a spray sealer, which I think, I don't know, I do have some of the Krylon spray acrylic stuff. Maybe I'll try that and just see what happens. I don't need to on these cards necessarily, but I think that might actually be a better way to seal stuff. You just put it on, it'll go on pretty smooth, and I don't know. Lots of different ways to do all this stuff, but I don't think I would mess around with laminating personally. Okay, so I'm going to switch to this view. Looks kind of dark, doesn't it? I don't know what the deal is with these cameras. I'm going to try and see if I can the exposure just that seems a little bit better. I don't know, it might be the same. So what I want to do with this thing is paint on very thinly a few effects, and I think I might go with some of these. I forget what these things were called, but I got them at Solar Color Dust. Oh, here's one. It's called Super Chameleon Flakes. I think this is the one. So this is red, blue, purple, red, gold. Might go with one of those. So I'm just going to paint a little bit of that on. I might put, let's see here. Might put a little bit of, what else we got? Got some green too. I don't know. I kind of like the purple, this purplish one. I might add just a little bit of dyed resin as well. Maybe some, maybe I'll put in a little bit of glow-in-the-dark powder. I think we'll do a little glow-in-the-dark powder. That might be kind of fun when you're driving and the thing's glowing at night. I don't know. So let's just do that. We're going to paint on a very thin layer. I'm pretty sure that I can get away with using Alumilite Clear Slow to do this painting and then just pour the epoxy on top. I'm going to use Amazing Clear Cast Plus. This is also going to be a little bit of a test. So, you know, there's all these claims about Amazing Clear Cast Plus and its UV inhibition. And so we're going to put this stuff in the frying pan and we're going to see how this does sitting in a truck, which is getting bombarded. I don't even park in a garage or anything like that. So Amazing Clear Cast Plus is going to be our final, you know, casting thing, but I don't want to use that for doing the painting stuff. I think we can get away with Alumilite Clear Slow with no problems. Sometimes you can have reactions if you're using different types of resins. Another way to go is I could just use 5-minute epoxy, but I kind of like Alumilite Clear Slow. It's a little bit of a thinner viscosity. So let's go with that. I'm gonna move to the casting view so you can kind of see what I'm doing in that bottom cam. Oh yeah, that's not a bad way to go, Dominic. But then you gotta flip it and mess around with it. I don't know. It's a good idea. I'm trying to think though, because I really want it in the middle of the resin. That's what I was kind of going for. So for that, I'd have to then like take it out and then flip it over, and I think that you're better off leaving it if you're trying to get it centered in the middle of two things. I think you're better off probably just leaving it. I don't know. Philip's here. What's up, man? Okay, so let's see here. I got my cup here. We're zeroing it out. I'm just going to put we don't need a lot. I'm going to put 20 grams. So 10 of part A. See, I might have gone over. Nope, 8. 9. Close enough. The scale's going all over the place. 9.7. Let's add just a little bit more. Add a little extra part B on this one. Just because. Zero that out and we'll add 10 grams. So I went to 9.8 is what it ended up being. Part A, I'm going to put 10, just a little extra part B. No big deal. You don't want to do that with any other resin. It's just Alumilite Clear Slow. Other ones you want to nail that, you know, whatever the ratio is, you want to nail it. Scale's feeling a little frisky today. I have to reset it. All right. Got a little stick here. I kind of stir it up fairly slowly. Don't want to introduce a ton of air bubbles. I'll tell you what, guys, I really like pressure casting a lot more than that. That's the other thing that I don't like about doing those, like the Pokemon card type things, where you really don't want to stir fast. And I'm just so used to the way that I do things is just whip it up and get it done quick, because I'm trying to, you know, usually beat clocks and timing and stuff. And having to sit for like 5 minutes stirring something really slow, not my favorite thing. I'd rather just not worry about air bubbles and stick it in the pressure pot whenever I can. Give me color swirl blanks any day. Julie's here. What's up? All right, so what I'm going to do here, I need to get my glow powder out. Yes. What I'm going to do is we're going to go with, all we need to do is put a little bit of resin, and really 20 grams is way more than I needed for this. A little bit of resin in that other cup there. And then we're going to put our flakes in. I'm actually going to put this back in the oven for now. It's just going to cool off, basically. So we're just going to grab some of these flakes, and I'm going to grab a lot. These things, man, anything that has like static, it makes these things fly all over the place. You're using these chameleon flakes, they're going to get everywhere, just to let you know. I forget who said it, but a good tip if you need to pick up like flakes or glitters or any of that kind of stuff, just grab a piece of tape. That's the ticket. That's the way to go. And then go pick it up. Okay, so we got our flakes. I'm just going to kind of stir them in a little bit. That should be pretty good. I could probably even add more. Let's add a little bit more. We want a lot of flakes basically compared to the resin. So 2 ways to do that. You either need to add a ton of flakes to however much you keep adding to the resin, or use less resin basically. Could have used a lot less resin probably, but that's okay. Yak's here, what's up? All right, so I think that's good. Let's get, one thing I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna be using glow powder, like your traditional glow powder. And that stuff, actually, yeah, we're gonna go with green. We're gonna go with green, kind of like the green idea. I'm also gonna add a little bit of fluorescent green dye to the mix, because this stuff, all it does is look milky. Your just standard glow powders, it's just going to look kind of milky white in clear resin. So during the day when it's not, you know, glowing, you need to add some sort of color to it. Otherwise it's going to, like I said, just look kind of gross. We got our Alumilite's fluorescent dye. I'm just going to like kind of mix this up. Oops, I got a little dye in there. Always a good idea to close your jugs. Shake, shake, shake. And I'm just going to give this a squirt. And this can affect how much glow you get sometimes, depending, but I don't drive that much at night in the first place, so I'd rather take a little less glow action at night and have this look good when I'm in there most of the time. There's always trade-offs, isn't there? And then we will add, let's see, I'm going to try, I accidentally got a little bit of dye in there. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to get that out of there. Right, well, I lost it. All right, so I'm going to take a couple scoops here. I want this stuff to glow as much as possible. So with this, you know, what we're doing is we're just going to paint this onto the surface, and you don't really need, you want to go with like kind of thin, like coats or whatever on the surface when you're doing this on top of burls. This is for like dragon eggs and, you know, all that kind of different stuff and different effects. If you want to see some really awesome, you know, effects that are done like this, check out, well, Ben over at Ben's Works, he does really good stuff with this type of, you know, he's like the dragon egg master. There's also Alpenglow Woodworks on Instagram. He does wicked stuff. I think he's up in Colorado. And then Dairy Woodworks, he's up in Canada somewhere, and he does really amazing stuff too. So if you want to see some really killer, and they don't really do dragon eggs, the Alpenglow and Dairy, they do like the jewels and things, you know, like the faceted cubes and cube things and turning type projects, all kinds of different, really kind of like bigger, different stuff, but with really killer effects all throughout. If you aren't following them on Instagram, you're going to want to go check them out. I don't even know how they do half the stuff that they do. I have an idea, but I'm really not even sure. Some of the stuff is elusive as to how it's done. All right, so we got, I think that'll be kind of cool looking. What do you think? Yeah, Derry does wicked stuff, and he does all kinds of different stuff too. Not just that kind of thing. Alpenglow, he does mostly that type of what I was just kind of talking about. That's most of what he does. But Derry, he does different kind of woodworking things. He makes like little kind of, I think just using like cutoffs and stuff he'll make. I just saw a post of his today. He was making like a pendant or something like that. And it was kind of using similar stuff to, you know, the bigger things that he makes. So grab your piece of tape, wrap it around your fingers, and you can just pick up little specks of stuff. Look at that. Clean that workspace up. And when it gets kind of messed up, you flip it over. And you got more stickum. Look at that. I'm going to get some of this over here. Why not? Look at that. Brilliant. Okay. So now at this point, it's just a waiting game. We have to sit here and wait for this stuff to kind of thicken up a little bit. And then we'll just paint it on. You can get kind of cool effects if you pour it on when it's thinner, and it'll kind of run a little bit more. But I usually kind of find that it works better if you let it, thicken up first, then kind of paint the stuff on. So I got a couple of little paint brushes here. I'd recommend going with, so you may be familiar with these acid brushes. These things suck. The bristles just fall out. I know there's ways that you can make it slightly better, but I wouldn't even waste my time. I'd just go on Amazon, find some cheap artist brushes. Much better way to go, I think. These bristles don't fall out. They paint better. They're more for painting. Acid brushes are good for like wiping chips off of things or something, It's snowing. Oh man. I think it might snow here this weekend. I'm done with snowboarding season, so anyway. Oh, Wisconsin? Wisconsin, I see. Yeah, and one thing that I've been doing is I went to a physical therapist because my knees and my back are just messed up. They've been really bothering me. And I think I have issues with my posture and different, like lots, you know what I mean? Like lots of different things going on. So I finally just said, look, I can't just try. Obviously, what I'm trying to do isn't really working. I need help. So got an appointment for physical therapy, and it got a little regiment that I'm starting with. And can't say that I'm not having results yet. It's been like 3 days, but I think it's going to help strengthen. One of the other problems is I kind of also realized that my core and my like legs, my glutes and certain parts really aren't that strong. And I assume that because I snowboard that I'm like stronger than I am. Not so, it turns out. So hopefully I can get those things strengthened up and fix some of these issues. Probably not going to fix my knees. I think they're jacked, but All right, I think we're pretty close. It's a little bit thicker. You could wait a little longer, but it's good to kind of get in the middle. Somewhat thick, but it's easier to start out at least when it's kind of medium thick. Get things kind of started that way. Add a little bit of this stuff all over the place. Be kind of a cool. I mean, this glitter is really going to make my gear shift knob manly. Yeah, manly gear shift knob with the glitter. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Kind of just, doing a little bit of treatment to the surface of the burl here. And then we're just clear casting. I want to keep it, clear. So we can kind of see what the effects of the sun are, the UV rays are on the amazing clear cast plus, the one that has the UV inhibitors and all that good stuff in it. All right, I think that's pretty good. What I was kind of going for. We got little sparkles all over the place. Look at that. Be sweet. A little bit more to here. A little bit of a pool of them. All right, so we're done with the purple. And then, let me see, how thick are we here? Yeah, that's nice. That's perfect. I actually timed that pretty good. That's starting to thicken up a little bit, so now I'm just going to be kind of selective and add a little bit of this glow powder here and there. One thing that I'm going to do is just kind of stir this up because glow powder is kind of heavy. I want to make sure that we're getting the glow powder and not just the dye. So I'm going to be turning this round. So for the most part, I mean, the middle part of this is really going to be the action. That's where everything's going to be. Actually, we can cast this first. The way that this it is runny, but this stuff is going to set up, and frankly, I want to cast it pretty much right away. So I think I'm good with that. That's going to be kind of an interesting mix. Hopefully, we'll get decent glow. But it's still kind of runny, so I just got to kind of hold it until the stuff locks in, and then at that point, really, I can just cast this, I think. We'll have to kind of see. I think I've done this before, and I don't think there was any issue doing this with Alumilite Clear Slow and then putting ACC Plus on top. I don't think there was any issues with that. We gotta wait. Mainly, we just gotta wait for this to just lock in place. That's all we gotta wait for. We don't need to wait for full cure, I don't think. Like I said, I think it should work okay. All right. We're just old now. Yeah, I know. That actually, that's funny because I set up this appointment. I don't know the person that physical therapist, you know, and I walk in and she's like, so, you know, explain what's going on. And I'm like, well, my knees and this. And she's like, so you're 42. She's like, welcome to the 40s. I was like, well, she's like, I'm in my 50s. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm doing things right? I'm going to fix all the problems in my 40s. And by the time I'm 50, I'm going to be the bionic man. We'll see. We'll see how that plan comes to fruition. Still pretty runny. Probably could have waited a little bit longer. I didn't really time it or anything. Let me look at, what does our temperature gauge say? Yeah, I probably should have waited a little bit longer. I was thinking it was thicker than it really was. Especially being less resin. We're at like maybe 90 something. So we got a ways here. Got a ways to go. I think I might try to I think I'm going to pop this in the oven and try to see if that'll kind of make it hurry a little bit, you know, a little bit more, and kind of prop it up so that it's drip all over the place. But I'm just going to pop it in the oven. That should accelerate everything. See, can we do something with that? Ooh, we could make a dice. Yeah. Well, it's Alumilite clear. Oops. I got resin on my finger. Getting it all over my toolbox. Can't have that. Okay. What can I do with this? I think I got... Well, there's always the pendants. We can make a few pendants with this. That's what I get for rushing it, I know. It'll be okay though, I think. Casting view. So I won't be able to, I don't want to pressurize this. I should. I don't want to waste a pressure pot on it. So we'll just see how these things turn out. It is pretty thick. I wasn't going totally crazy. These are going to definitely be air bubbly. Okay, I'm just going to call that a day. Set this aside, and that'll cure up on its own. Okay, so why don't we, in the meantime, like I said, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's just get that one cast. So let me pull out we can start mixing up our ACC Plus. Now again, I don't need to worry about bubbles because I'm gonna pressurize that. The other thing I want to do is get my hot glue gun going. I'm gonna glue that chunk down into the mold. Okay, so we're gonna use, again, Amazing Clear Cast Plus. The Plus means that it's got enhanced UV stability. Not sure what that means, but you guys get the picture. It's gonna resist yellowing. So let's get, I don't need that. It's a by volume, ECC Plus is 1 to 1. 1 to 1 by volume. All right, so let's see here. The mold that I'm using holds, I want to say 450 grams. We're putting a little bit of wood in there. So let's just mix up maybe like 3, what do we got here? I think in terms of weight, because that's just what I usually do. Let's just mix up 350. 2 plus, we can make, let's just mix up 300. If I need to mix more, then I will. We got plenty of time. This is a 45-minute working time. So, oh, it's a 1 to 1. So hold on, 350, 2. Okay, so let's do we'll do 150 and 150 and see where we're at. If I need to mix up more, I will. So here goes the part A. Whoa, I went a little over. Got a little excited there, guys. I think I went over a little bit. I think epoxy, I think Amazing Clearcast is actually pretty, you know, you always want to do is get things as accurate as possible. Oh, actually, that's pretty good. Yeah, a little bit over. You want to be as accurate as possible whenever you're measuring, but I actually think that Amazing Clearcast is actually pretty forgiving on the ratio. It's kind of what Alumilite had a video about that. A lot of times I'll actually mark, you know, where I need to hit with a Sharpie, because there's lots of things going on this cup. I'm okay. I know where I'm going this time, but sometimes that can help, is just put a little extra mark on there. Help you kind of see what you're doing. Okay. This stuff is a lot thicker than Alumilite Clear Slow. Just to kind of warn you, it's really more of a bar top epoxy, which those things tend to be, you know, countertop or bar top epoxies tend to be thick. I'm going to use my silicone spatula. That's exciting. Silicone spatulas are pretty good because they really scrape the sides well, you know, on your cup. Sometimes, you know, wood or plastic can kind of be like not perfectly flat. This stuff really gets in there and scrapes it all up and gets in the corners and stuff. So I'm just really used to using either wooden popsicle sticks or my plastic ones, and they work fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but silicone, I do think really does scrape your cup a lot better. So if you want to pick some of these up somewhere, there's also a company that makes these little things that go over popsicle sticks. I didn't really like them. They ended up making them really thick. But I think they have smaller ones that I want to try out sometime. I don't remember the name of the company, but there are other options that you could use. I think that you're probably better off going with just a full-on spatula. But Fleetswood, how's it going? As you can see, I mean, this stuff is pretty, it's like honey, kind of like a thinner honey. Compared to like Alumilite Clear Slow, that stuff is thin. But if you really mix this stuff up, I mean, you can see you really whip bubbles into it. I don't know if you can kind of really see that, but you got to be very careful and mix this very slow if you are trying to not mix bubbles into it. This stuff might actually be a candidate. I usually don't recommend vacuum or anything like that, but the thickness of this, you know, and knowing that you got about 45 minutes, I don't know if this will work or not, because I've had some issues with epoxies and vacuum, but this might actually be one of those things that before you pour it, you can run it through the vacuum chamber. That might help. One issue I have with epoxies, especially with vacuum, sometimes when you put certain chemicals under vacuum, the boiling point lowers. So if it was, the boiling point, the temperature was, 200 degrees before at normal pressure, if you put it under vacuum, it can, significantly reduce it. Like one chemical is acetone. That stuff will boil way quicker. If you put it under vacuum, it'll start boiling. And so a lot of these things do have an acetone or similar, solvents in them. So that's one of the reasons I stay away from it. I really don't like vacuum with casting at all. It just causes so many issues usually, but this might not be a bad one to do. Or at least try. All right, so that's probably mixed up as good as I'm going to get it. As good as I'm willing to do it. Let's see how our little thing is doing here. Yeah, that's pretty well hardened up. Good. Okay, so we got our chunk. We got a warm mold. I'm going to toss my chunk. Oh, actually, I gotta hit it with some hot glue first. We got our hot glue ready. Look at that. I am rocking it today. I'm just going to put it on the edge here. Just need to hold it in place a little bit. Drop that guy in and then push it. So it should hold it in place so it doesn't float or anything. Okay. I'm going to leave the hot glue gun out because we got other chunks that I'm going to have to do. Okay. Get that right there. I'm just going to give this a little bit more mixing. Yeah, this is a silicone spatula. I don't know what's underneath it, but pretty nice one. I've had this for a long time. I think I just got it on Amazon or something. Maybe Target. Who knows? All right, I think we're good. Let's see how we did here. Can you guys see what I'm doing? Be like that. Let's start at the bottom. Ooh, I think I did pretty good. Don't need to fill this mold totally. Even still, I think I did pretty good estimating there. The walls of the mold are a little bit taller than 2 inches. So it's 2 inches wide. Technically the walls are a little bit taller. That way I can kind of, if I'm putting certain things in it, I can ensure that the end thickness or size is 2 inches. I like to have a little extra room sometimes. It should be pretty darn close to 2. Probably don't need, I could probably even get away with like 1 3/4. It's probably what it's going to end up being turned, possibly. I don't know. I haven't really thought that far ahead. Okay, so there we go. We got a bubbly mixture, but it's going in the pressure pot. And that means, let's see here. So yeah, that should be fine. That means that we won't have to worry about the bubbles. It's going to take care of it for us. Okay, into the pressure pot we go. And take it up to 70 psi. And we will be done. I'm gonna wipe off my spatula real quick here. Yeah, I think this silicone one is going to be my go-to for the amazing clear cast. That worked really well. Might even pull it out for some Alumilite. Who knows? No, I don't need mold release. Frankly, for something like that where you're casting wood, you really wouldn't want. Well, I wouldn't want to have mold release in there. You don't want to put something on there that could affect the bond, you know, between the resin and the wood. Like you could spray it first, I think, and then get away with that. But a couple problems there. If hot gluing that thing down would not have worked if I would have sprayed it. So that's one issue. The other thing is you can't spray it after you've put the wood in because you'd be spraying it all over the wood. So I usually don't. HDPE is pretty non-stick. I mean, eventually they kind of wear and they get kind of sticky, but it'll pop right out of there. Amazing Clear Cast isn't too bad. It demolds pretty well. There are some epoxies out there that pretty much, if you don't use if you don't use a mold release on it, you're going to be pretty hosed. All right, so the next things that we got, I'm going to toss this into the oven. Let's do this one next, okay? So we got a couple of chunks. We got a little bit of purple in there, kind of, and some orangish. Purple and orange, there's a little bit of red in there. So I'm going to put it in the mold. I'm going to switch, I guess, back to the overhead view. We're just going to kind of put it at the two ends there. Is this the right mold? Yeah, it is. So we need to hot glue this down first. Let's do that real quick. I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back of this guy. Same thing goes for this. I'm not going to use mold release. And this guy. And so these can be used for either like bottle stoppers or handles or gear shifts, duck calls. I don't know. You guys think of anything else? There's lots of things. You could technically cut it into pen blanks, I guess, if you wanted. Lots of different things. So this is what we got going on. If you want to get in for color choices, now's the time for super chats. I'm going to put that in the oven for now. I'm going to get, let's see here, get that out of the way. Got my calculator. Let's get our notebook out. So that mold is about a 1.5, a little bit proud of a 1.5 inch, square by about 6.5, 6 and something. I don't know. It's around 6 or so, 6.5. So I think that one takes about 350 grams or so if I was just trying to fill that mold up completely. So probably with the wood in there, we can probably just estimate like 300. So what's the date? Today's the 21st. We're doing hybrid handle blanks. I just call these handle blanks. You can call them blocks. I think most people kind of know what that is. Another thing you could do is cut these into kind of smaller things. I guess it wouldn't work as well, but you could maybe figure out cutting some ring blanks out of this too. What else? No, these were, I didn't seal or do anything. The ones that we're doing now and the next one, those are all dye stabilized. So they've been fully stabilized. There's no reason to put anything to seal it with. And then the first one, you don't need to seal it. I dried it out pretty well. And I just added a little bit of stuff on the top. You could seal it if you want, but I don't really think it's necessary. Sealing wood, the only time you have to seal wood is if it's wet, if you didn't dry it out beforehand. But I always like to either stabilize or dry things out completely. That way I don't have to worry about sealers. Let's see, hybrid handles. Let's see, we're doing number 1. I actually forgot to write notes, but we did my gear shift knob. So let me just write a few notes about that. The one that we just did real quick. So we did the 2-inch blank. We did ACC Plus was the resin, the clear that we cast. And we use Slow Set Clear for effects. And for the effects, we did green glow, powder, and fluorescent green dye. And we use, let's see, what was that stuff called? Super Chameleon Flakes. Blue, purple, red, gold. Okay, so that was the first one. We did 300 milliliters. Okay, number 2. We are doing Anne's in for light green on that one. Nice, that's a good color. Let's see, number 2 is going to be orange, purple blocks. 1.5 inch. And let's see here. We're just going to go with Slow Set Clear on that. Again, typically I prefer using Alumilite Clear Slow for most things, but if I'm going to go for something dead clear and take advantage, you know, and I want to try and get the UV inhibition, then I'm going to pull out the ACC Plus. Liquid Diamonds has UV inhibitor as well. The problem is comparing these things is very difficult. There is no data where you can compare something. Eventually I want to do some comparisons with yellowing. I just haven't got around to it and just kind of compare stuff. But that gear shift knob is going to be kind of a test to see how does this stuff actually hold up being bombarded all day with UV light. So anyway, we're going to use Slow Set Clear. And let's see, that mold, we probably need to just mix up about 300, I would say. 50 times 2. And then we got light green. We got Richard's in. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate it. What color do you want? We got light green, and we need to, so again, just to make sure, Richard, we got these orange, they're kind of orange, and there's a little bit of purple. They look a little dull right now, but once we put the resin on, they're going to really pop. They're going to look great. Those colors are really going to like stand out. So orange, and there's actually a little red on the bottom of the one. So orange, mostly purple streaks on that one side, and then a little bit of red on the bottom. And then we got light green and whatever you want. Number 1 fan. I love those little pear guys. Those are my favorite. Ooh, light green and gold. I like that. That's going to be sweet. So we got lots of, let's see. So for light green, let's see what we got here. We got spring green from P-Town Subby. That's pretty light. That's not a bad color. So, and we can go for dyes. Let's see here. We got, well, you know, we got key lime if we wanted a dye color. We got spring green. We got apple green from Pearlex. Kind of very similar to spring green, I think. It's kind of more like a lime green. There's also, what's it called? Emerald green. That's not a bad color whatsoever. I don't know if it's super light. Not dark though. And then for golds, we got all kinds. We got goldenrod. We got Olympic gold. We got, what else we got? We got antique gold. Anything else? Got a couple other golds, but they're all kind of the same. So we got, this one's Olympic gold. That one's kind of nice. We got goldenrod. It's a little bit more like kind of yellow, like yellow gold. Kind of like a Pittsburgh Steeler color kind of sort of thing. And then we got antique gold. That's a little bit more kind of like your orangey gold. And Olympic gold is somewhere kind of in the middle of those. a little bit lighter than the antique. So we got lots of choices. Emerald green, that's one of my favorites. That is just a fabulous color. Okay. Is Dave out of here? All right, dinner time. That is a good reason to be leaving. No worries there. Thanks for joining the fun, Dave. Okay, so we'll put these guys away. We got our emerald green. The second one. Olympic gold. Goldenrod then. I think this was the second one. I'm just going to open it. We're going to call Olympic gold 1, 2, and then antique gold is 3. So 1, 2, and then 3. I don't want to pick the wrong one. I'm surprised I still haven't gotten a... I'm going to look at my phone. I really figured that the FedEx guy would come in the middle of... Right in the middle of stuff. So I don't know when they're supposed to be coming then. They said the end of the day. Like, when is that? I mean, most businesses close at 5. Sorry, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about. I'm getting my dust collector delivered sometime, I guess, today. Not happy with FedEx. Number 2, okay. All right, so we'll go with a little bit of light green and gold. That's cool. And we got one other one, if anybody wants to get in on the red casting that we got. We got a pretty neat looking one. I'm going to close out colors for this one. But if you want to get in on the next one, we're going to be casting this chunk, and it's got all kinds of red and craziness going on. I think there's a little bit of gold possibly that I mixed in there. I don't know. Who even knows? Okay, so we need 300 grams. Let's, I think I'm going to up that just a little bit. We're going to go with 320, just to make sure, you know what I mean? Rather not, Alumilite clear is not one that you want to be under on because you don't have enough time to mix more up. So that's going to be 160 grams times 2. So we're using Alumilite clear slow for this one, and that's going to be 1-to-1 by weight. You have to use the scale for Alumilite clear slow, or just Alumilite clear, their other version of it. For the ACC Plus, you have to use volume. You don't want to use the scale. So make sure that you read the directions on the resin that you've bought, even because this is Amazing Clear Cast and Alumilite clear. Those two get mixed up so many times. People think that they bought, you know, the Alumilite that they saw somebody using, and they just assume because, you know, I'm using a scale or whoever they saw used a scale, but they on the, you know, on the video or wherever, they were using Alumilite clear, right? And then you go and buy Amazing Clear Cast thinking it's the same thing, and you can't use a scale, and then they wonder, why did my thing not work? Because you mixed it improperly. You measured it, I should say, the wrong way. All right, so I've zeroed my scale out. We're going 160 grams of part A. Ooh, Wolf Ridge, what's up, Ed? 150. Gotta pick a color. What are you gonna pick? That red one's gonna be pretty neat looking, I think. Should make for a pretty cool brick block. I didn't see, did you guys come up with any other 9 p.m. yeah. End of the day is 7. Yeah, we'll all be gone by then. No, I'll be here probably till 6. All right, so we got 160 part A. Let's go for our part B. $157. 8. Need to get another cup out here. 159. One, almost. Okay, 160. All right, so let me mix this guy up here. We're going to be mixing colors together, and the way to keep those colors from bleeding together is you have to wait till the end of the working time. And so the best way that I've found so far, and I have to thank Brian Blum for this one. I did not come up with this myself. I had seen other people using it, I wasn't sure, but get an infrared thermometer. Temperature is the most consistent way to get the right timing down with your resins if you need to wait for some specific state of it. And what's happening is you're waiting till the end and it starts to warm up and it's going to start to thicken. And the mixture of those two things keep those colors from bleeding all together. If you poured it right away, they just all kind of, there's nothing really keeping them separated, right? And the other nice thing about waiting till the end also, so you pour your colors, maybe give it a swirl with the stick, but if you're waiting till the end to pour it, that means that it's going to literally turn from a liquid to solid very quickly. And that's another reason why I like using fast setting resins, is it locks it in right away, where some of the longer working time resins, you know, even after it's technically the working time's over, it's still kind of in a gel state, and it can kind of move around a little bit. It doesn't just kind of lock in like Alumilite Clear does. It pretty much turns from liquid to solid in like 1 minute once it's, you know, going. So that's one of the reasons why I like using this product. It just kind of, I do a lot of that kind of color swirl stuff and it just works good. Plus I don't have to worry about, you know, how I'm mixing stuff. You do have to use a pressure pot with it though. So, you know, that could be a drawback depending. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to mix, I forgot to, I'm just kind of winging things today. We are going to do like a 70-30 mixture. I'm going to do mostly green and we're going to add some of that gold as kind of an accent this time. So let's see here. So 70% of 320 is 224. We need to dump off, I'm actually not even going to use this cup. I'm going to use a smaller cup here, because we're not going to have as much. So that's 76 grams. Yeah, that should, let's see here. Let's do, yeah, okay, that's fine. 76. Let's just go with, what's 320 minus, oops. All right, so we're going to go 240 and 80. Is that right? Yeah. 40 and 80. So I'm going to pour 80 grams into this cup. And we're going to add the gold to this one. It'll be a little bit more kind of accent, not as much gold. Doesn't have to be necessarily perfect or anything. Okay, so we got 80, we got 240. All right, so we got our green. Let's see here. We're going to go for 120. We're going to go for, let's just see what a 1/4 teaspoon. Oh, I think I might have heard a truck. Emerald green. An 1/8 teaspoon of, this one was goldenrod. Okay, so we got our 1/8 teaspoon. We're going to add that to this cup. And then we got our 1/4 teaspoon. We're going to get some emerald green. Put it in this cup. Stir that in. Sure it's nice and sturdy, and you don't want any floaties. You don't want floaters. Let me get this out of here so I don't accidentally get anything in there. Get our golden rod. This is going to be pretty sweet. So we're going to have orange, gold, green, purple, and a little bit of red in this bling. That's going to be pretty sweet. Let's see, did Ed pick, did you pick a color? What color did you want? Oh, you want starlight, I see, sorry. Okay. Do a little bit of starlight. Okay, so that's nice and mixed up. Let's see here. And the way that I do this is actually going to change things too. So if you just leave the cup sitting there for 5 minutes, and then stick the thermometer on it, that's going to give you kind of a surface temperature. All right, and that may be fine. If that's the way that you're going to do it every time, that's fine. But typically we have a tendency to stir things up anyway before we pour. So I like to kind of stir things up, then quickly grab the gun and look at it. I think that's better. But whatever way you're going to do it the same so that it's consistent. Otherwise, and what I find is it's actually warmer in the center than the surface. And so that's why I'm saying, like, it'll kind of throw things off. If you're shooting for 98 degrees and you know you just did the top surface, but usually you do the mixture thing, it's going to be off. It's going to be hotter on the inside. So for consistency, make sure that you're doing it the same way. I kind of recommend just stirring it up a little bit and then shooting the gun right in the center. I think that's the best way to go. So we're at 94.5. I'm going to pour at 97, let's say. And it's 71 degrees in my shop right now. That also factors into this a little bit. It's going to change the viscosity of the resin in the jug, right? The starting viscosity is going to be a little bit different. So a lot of times it doesn't necessarily make that much difference in the end. You know, if you typically would pour at like 95, which is a pretty good, I think for Alumilite Clear Slow, somewhere between 95 and 100 for most things. For like just color swirl blanks is usually a pretty good range. But sometimes when it's warmer, like in the summer here, I actually wait till like 105, 110 sometimes. And if you're trying to lock things like that are heavy in place, you're probably gonna have to wait even longer. So these numbers, when people say, oh, when should I pour it? It depends. It depends on what the ambient temperature is. Depends on what you're trying to do. What resin, definitely what resin you're using. This is not gonna work. For most of the epoxies and things, we're at 99, so I went a little bit over, no big deal. But for most of your epoxies, it's gonna be a much higher number because they get hotter in general. All right, so we're just gonna pour a little bit in here. Then I'm gonna come back with this guy and we're gonna pour a little bit right here. And then a little bit more. I'm gonna let this kind of run down. Just kind of swirling effects here a little bit. Go. This kind of go whoosh. Sound effects not included. Okay. There we go. Okay, poured a little too much, or mixed up a little too much resin here. Have to quickly put a pipe together. Okay, real quick, I'm gonna get this pipe. I got a 1.5 inch PVC pipe here. You got some excess resin. Get that out of the way. So what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna pour both of these at the same time. You can kind of mix it around, turn and twist and do all that kind of stuff. Oops. Blocking it off. So now we got a little bit of a stopper blank going as well. Not too bad, huh? Okay, so let's pop this guy in the pressure pot. Oop. And get that up to 70 psi. All right. Starlight. Yeah, so Nicholas, the Starlight is my Starlight glitter. So it looks like we got, see here. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to run up front and just make sure that there's not a FedEx truck trying to deliver something to me or my neighbor or something real quick. But I'm going to ask you, were you thinking like clear with the Starlight? Because the regular Starlight, that pretty much is going to need a clear or very transparent, at least translucent. I might lose you guys on the mic, so I'm going to hit mute real quick. Okay, nope, the truck I heard was the next door people. So still no dust collector. Another thing, maybe, I don't know if anybody has experienced this, but I was looking at the tracking on FedEx's website and it said shipment exception emergency. And I couldn't find anything that would tell me what that meant at all. So I was like, does that mean like there was like a natural disaster? Or does that mean there's an emergency with the truck? Like, what's happening? So who knows? But supposedly it made it from Sacramento where there was an emergency, and now there's an emergency in Sparks, supposedly. I don't think I'm ever getting that thing. All right, so we're going to hot glue this guy in. Now, again, I don't want to use mold release on these. HDPE molds don't stick in general in the first place. But I don't want mold release around these pieces of wood. You don't want to spray that. It's not going to stick to the wood then. So I always go without. Where you're going to need to use mold release every single time is if you're casting in something like a PVC pipe that you can't get it out. Like I can take this entire mold, even if it kind of sticks to it, I can disassemble the entire mold and pop the thing out, you know? So I'm not really that worried about HDPE molds. If you're using melamine, that you're going to want to spray every time. That's a different material. That's not totally non-stick. So yeah, I know. Well, supposedly it's the wood piece is red. It's mostly there might be a little bit of like yellow or something that I'm not sure exactly what I dyed it with, but it's mostly red. It's going to be it's the fireball red dye, cactus juice. When it's something you're excited to get, it doesn't show up till late. Yeah, but see, like I said, yeah, and but this isn't FedEx, like, you know, home FedEx delivery. This is coming on a big rig. It's a dust collector. Like this is not, that's why I'm so frustrated with this. Like I understand how residential delivery works. And if I was just sitting at my house, whatever, you know, drop it on the porch. This is lift gate service with a big rig, and like you don't get like even a window or anything. And I'm just like, really? All right, so let's see. So Oh, okay. So Lance, I did spray that PVC pipe. Sorry, I didn't really show it, but yeah, I hit it. I hit the pipe with really quickly with Stoner. I always have mold release sitting right under this camera. Oh, that camera's not on. Maybe that's why you didn't see that. Sorry, Stoner. I had it. I quickly sprayed it before I poured that stuff in. Sorry about that. I wasn't thinking. Okay, so let's see here. So Ed, what were you thinking like a clear, macro pearl clear? You want to see the wood. Okay, so do you want starlight or macro pearl, or do you want like both? So we got, let's see here. So we have micro starlight and then we have starlight. Okay, so there's two different things there. And then there's also, actually, if we're going to do a macro pearl, I want to try, Alumilite's got these polycolor ones. And this one's called Diamond Dust Metallic, which I think is exactly the same thing as the macro pearl, but I want to try that out. So we could do a little bit of all of that stuff if you want. I'm going to let you have it. I'm going to let you go go to town. So I'm going to close out. No more super chats for colors. We're just going to work on this clear thing because we can't add too many colors to it in the first place. Yeah, I'm guessing, I don't know. It's weird because it said exception emergency in Sacramento when it was there, but then it made it to Sparks. And then the most recent tracking is that they keep saying they're going to deliver it today. And then, but it's on its way to the local something. But there was also an exception in Sparks, emergency. And I'm like, what is happening here? This whole thing is crazy. This is not what I expected. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of everything. We'll just add a little bit of this stuff. But the question is, do you want the micro starlight? All right. We're going to put the macro pearl stuff in, but do you want micro starlight? These are like the little tiny specks, little holographic tiny guys. And then the starlight is the chonky. That's the chonky stuff. Okay. And for anybody that wants to pick either of those up, I sell both of these guys on my website. And I just restocked the micro pearl. So we're fully stocked on both of those guys. All right, so number 3, let me see here. I'm going to move these guys. And again, this is just something, Alumilite sent this to me. They asked if there was anything that I wanted to test out. And so I picked up a couple of their they call it polycolor. I just decided I'd try the silver one out just to see. I think it's going to be kind of like every other silver. And then there's also white metallic. I don't know what, I was just curious. So eventually I'm going to try those out. I haven't done it yet. Someday. I haven't had time lately. All right, so number 3, we're doing the red burl chunk. We're doing the 2-inch mold, and it's like 2-inch by 2-inch by about 6.5, 6 1/4, something like that. We're gonna use slow set clear again. Actually, yeah, we're gonna go with slow set clear. Because it'll kind of lock all this stuff. The starlight and micro starlight. Actually, most of this stuff it's not gonna sink, so. Maybe we'll use ACC Plus for this also. I did find that even with micro starlight, which this stuff, it doesn't sink or float in clear slow set or amazing clear cast or liquid diamonds, any of those things that have like a 45-minute working time or less, it stays totally suspended, doesn't move. But with deep pour, that stuff has like a 24-hour, like for, if you're pouring small things, and that's what I used on those pen blanks. And is that right? Yeah, I guess so. And it totally sunk in that stuff, but it's open for so long, like overnight. Huh. Wait. Well, so Ed, I'm putting this in either way. All right, so pick one of the. We're gonna do everything. We're gonna put a little bit of this in, just because I want to see what it looks like. But it'll be just a little bit. And then we're going to add a little bit of one of these. So pick either Starlight or Micro. All right, so red burl chunk. We're going to do, we don't want to add too much of this stuff. We just want to add a little bit. Very easy to go overboard. All right, so we're going to mix up, let's see, there's a lot of wood going in there, so I'm just going to mix up 300 milliliters. Probably going to be way plenty. We could probably do less than that. Let's do 260 milliliters. And let's see here. We're going to add diamond dust metallic. And I think that if you add a little bit of dye to these types of things, which it's the same, I'm pretty sure this is the same thing as macro pearl from lots of other places, mica powder sellers. Dust. If you add some dye to that, that's where, you know, this dye, it kind of does look like diamond dust, sort of, or, you know, kind of similar to that. Macro, that's a good combo. Or not really macro, but this is regular Starlight. Okay, so we're going for clear. We're going to add a little bit of, you know, a little bit of fun to this. Move these things over. All right, so Amazing Clear Cast Plus. That's a good choice for something that's clear. I find turns pretty well. One thing I will note about ACC Plus specifically compared to just Amazing Clear Cast, it is a little tiny bit softer. Not much. It's not a huge deal or anything, but it is a tiny bit softer than Amazing Clear Cast, like the regular version, and Alumilite Clear Slow. So, because I found that I had a little bit tougher time polishing, so softer materials are harder to get all the scratches out, to get fully polished up. Harder materials generally polish better. So just wanted to kind of give you that, let you know about that. But it turns fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with it or anything. Just a tiny bit, like a couple little notches down on the scale, basically, compared to some of the other ones. All right, so what do I need? I need a cup. I'm gonna use, hate these cups. Don't put milliliters on your graduated cup. I'm not a big fan of those TCP Global cups. I gotta be honest. Those things are silly. It doesn't have milliliters. Like, really? Probably the most widely used volumetric measurement, and you don't add that to your mixing cup? Like, really? Killing me. All right, so we're doing 260. Oh, that's going to be kind of tough to estimate. This is 1-to-1, Amazing Clear Cast Plus, 1-to-1. So 260. We're going to go with 250. That's the easy way to go. 250. So 125 and 125, which should work. Okay. That ought to be good. I'll wipe this off. I'm going to get down and look. Oh, I went over. Okay, so we're going to scrap that. I'm going to just shoot for 300. There's no line for 125, so I'm just going to go a little higher. We'll have a little extra. No biggie. This is one of those reasons why I kind of like weight better. Especially like on a 1-to-1. You just split it in half. Okay, that should be good. Oh, it's still not. I gotta go a little higher. All right, I think we're good now. Takes quite a bit of time to bash the box repeatedly. Yep, that's the emergency. Needed to bash my box in. I don't know. Okay, so then now we're going up to 300, 150, then 3. Whoa. Right on the dot. I was getting a little excited there. All right, so we're going to be a little over. No big deal, though. Just easier to get that mixed right. I think we're going to be well enough over that I think I can probably get a pen blank. Not going to be the most amazing pen blank ever. Yes. But we'll roll with it. Could be useful for something. Always want to scrape the sides and the bottom of your cup real well. Get all the part A's and part B's mixed up. And again, I'm going to be pressurizing this, so I don't really care that I'm whipping it furiously and creating a ton of bubbles. The pressure pot will get rid of them all. If you are not using pressure, then you're going to want to stir much more carefully, like super slow. This stuff will introduce bubbles pretty easily, and it takes a while for them to get out. So if possible, I don't know. You know, a lot of people say, oh, do I have to use a pressure? I want a resin that I don't need a pressure pot with. And I'm like, gotta be honest, it's so much easier with a pressure pot. In many cases, there are some things like, you know, those Pokemon cards, I'm not using a pressure pot because I can't see how the card's sitting and make sure that it's level, you know, the whole time. Because, you know, you screw the lid down and who knows, the thing can kind of move. And you know, some things you just can't fit in there, or you know, whatever. But many things, I just tell people, just get a pressure pot. You're going to need one eventually. Just go for it. The other one that, you know, people say, oh, you know, I used a resin that I didn't need to pressurize, but then I got air bubbles in it. And I'm like, well, that's what happens. Okay, so we're going to go for a very light amount of Starlight. We don't need a lot, okay? It's going to be a very tiny amount. If you want to be able to see through, you know, to the wood and all that stuff, then you really don't want a lot of stuff. Come on, sit and don't move. All right, so like that might be kind of overdoing it. I'm actually going to get rid of some of it. Very small amount. Just want to add a little effect, right? It's going to sparkle good. What happens is if you, and I know these things are super tiny particles, super small chunks, but if you add too much, it's distracting. You don't see much. I think at that point, you're better off just dumping a ton of it in there, you know? Which actually, I don't think I've ever tried that. What do you guys think? Do you want to try that? Load it up with this macro pearl and Starlight glitter? Because I don't think I've ever actually done that. Typically when I'm using these things, man, this stuff gets all over the place. You know, it's like a burl chunk that I want to see. Yeah, there's resins that you can use without a pressure pot. Liquid diamonds works great. There's tons, but pressure is the only way to guarantee you're not going to get air bubbles. You know, and you also don't have to sit there and stir it like, you know, slow. I like stirring fast. Ah, he wants to go for it. All right, let's go for it. So let's get out a teaspoon thing. So we're gonna add a teaspoon of macro pearl. This is a half teaspoon that I just pulled out. Measuring spoon. So half teaspoon of this. Well, let's start with that and see where we're at. This stuff like literally floats all over the place. This is going to be a gigantic. We're going to have macro pearl or whatever this stuff is called everywhere in the shop. So we're going to do a half thing of that. And we're going to do a half thing of macro pearl. Half teaspoon. This is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to mix it up and just kind of see what it looks like in the cup. This is kind of cool. I think we're going to need more. That's going to be weird. One of the problems is this stuff has so much air bubbles in it that it's kind of like almost like opaque. It's not as good a, you know. We're going to go with a teaspoon of each of this stuff. We're going to go for it. Load it. Load it up and see what happens. It might be pretty darn cool. Like I said, I don't think I've ever done this before. Never thought about it. Now I do think it would be cool to add dye to this, but I don't want to do that because I already know what that looks like, but I've never done this with no, like clear resin with no color, but just a bunch of like glittery stuff. So let's do this. We're going for diamonds here. I don't know. It doesn't look that good right now, but I think it's actually going to be really cool in the blank. The problem is, like I was saying, there's a lot of air bubbles trapped in the resin, so it's not like super clear. And I think once, you pressurize it, it cures up and everything, and then you like turn it, I think it's actually going to be really cool. So, and we should be able to get a good idea once we demold it, what is it really going to look like when it's actually kind of turned up. So, we should have a little extra, so I can add a little bit of dye to that. Make a pen blank out of it. So we'll get both going here, guys. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right, so are we ready? Are we have the cameras ready? Are we rolling? Let's do this. Oh, look at that stuff. That's pretty cool. I think this is going to be a really cool blank. So far, I'm like, yeah. Do it. All right, let's try to get one pen blank filled, because that ought to be good enough, most likely. I'm going to kind of tap this. There are a few like kind of cracks and crevices that the resin may end up dropping a little bit. One thing to think about is all the air bubbles that are in there, once they collapse, the volume of your mold, of the amount of resin is actually going to go down. But I want to get one of these pen blanks in here, and then we're going to add a little bit of dye in there. I'm going to have to stir it in the mold, I guess, but that's okay. Get a little bit more in here. Make sure that this one's good. That's good. That should be plenty. And now, switch hands. I'm going to scrape this. I'm going to just top this guy off here a little bit more. What would have been smarter is if I would have just mixed it in, because you really want to make sure that you mix the dye in fully. I'm going to have to do a little bit of standing and mixing for a while, but that's okay. I wouldn't advise mixing dye into the into the resin in the mold after you've poured it. in most cases. Okay, so we got as much as we can get out pretty much. So let's see here. Purple is a good color to go in there. Probably a green. I'm going to put a little bit of green in there. Like 2 drops. This is a Lumelite dye. I think this is like a mixture of some sort. But basically just green. And then what I'm going to do is we're just going to, hopefully you guys can kind of see this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So I've dropped two drops of dye in here. And I'm just going to mix this in the mold. Like I said, this is really not the way to do this, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough of everything, you know. Problem is, if you don't mix the dye in fully, like when I'm turning this blank, what can happen is you basically just trap a bunch of dye in the resin, but it's not cured, and so you get in there and it's just a mess. You always want to mix your dyes in fully. And it's much easier to do that in the cup. This is working. We'll get it eventually. What do you guys think? That's pretty cool looking, huh? Kind of diamond dustish. Okay, so we got one more pressure pot open here. Drop this guy in here. One thing okay, so I'm gonna have to use a rack. One thing to note, so most pressure pots are pretty curved on the bottom. Even the CA Technologies ones are pretty flat, but they're still not flat, right? And if you put a silicone mold into a flat, you know, in a pressure pot with a flat bottom, or I mean a curved bottom, it's literally, when you pressurize it, it's going to banana shape. So you don't want that. So I'm going to use a little rack here. That'll make sure that this thing stays flat. Put this guy over there. Put this guy right there. You get these racks at Turner's Warehouse. They got ones for 2.5 gallon as well as 5-gallon pots, I'm pretty sure. Last time I checked, they were in stock anyway. Okay, so we got our castings. Let's get our lid on, cinch it down. And you guys all know, don't go over the max PSI of whatever your pressure pot says. So if it says do not exceed, or if it says max PSI 60 or 50 or whatever, don't go above that. You should stay safe. All right, mine are CA Technologies. They have a max PSI of 80, and I'm going to 70. All right, so there you have it. You got it. The green looks pretty good, huh? All right, oops, I shouldn't have taken my gloves off yet. I'm gonna wipe my spatula off real quick. So that's all we got, guys. We got a couple of we got a couple handle blanks made today, and then that gear shift knob. So I'm pretty excited about that. That'll be a fun project. I don't do a lot of projects that I really, for me necessarily, that I need for myself. So that one will be a pretty fun one. Usually I'm kind of more of a utility person. Like, I'm not just going to make something just to have it too much. I like to, I like to have a need for things, and I don't generally need a lot of the things that I make. So this is going to be a pretty awesome project for me. Spruce up the truck just a little bit. Get this thing cleaned off. There we go. And real quick, I'm going to clean off the cup here. Tell you what though, that macro pearl stuff, like, it was worse than the Starlight glitter, I think. It was literally just going everywhere. It's a very fine kind of powder. And so, static electricity, anything that's staticky, like, binds onto. You can see it still floating all over me, all over my work area. So it's a very sparkly day today after we're done. Green and clear with sparkles. How's it going, Pixie? Yeah. Yeah, it does look kind of like money. See here. See here. So Jean, do you have to put it in a pressure pot? She asked. The way that I stirred that up, pretty much, yeah. Amazing Clearcast Plus is pretty thick resin, and although it has a long working time, I just find that, especially if you load it up with a bunch of glitter and stuff and different things, and then you're just whipping it furiously, so there's lots of air bubbles in there, it's gonna have air bubbles. Like, there's really no way to get around it. If you were more careful stirring it, probably not. You can get away without it. And the other thing is, it's up to your tolerance levels, all right? So I sell pen blanks. There better not be any air bubbles in them, period. That's one of the reasons why I use pressure on pretty much everything I make that's a turning blank. Do you have to use one? Not necessarily, but I recommend it. The other thing is, and what I was saying was, I kind of recommend people just get one off the bat, especially if you're making like turning blanks. And you are thinking that you might go down the road of mixing other materials in there. Because if you put like a bunch of shredded money in, there is no way that you can get away with not using a pressure pot. It's just going to be riddled with air bubbles. Even if you use pressure, there's little, like pinholes sometimes, right? And so anytime that you're putting something, excuse me, let me get a drink of water real quick. Throat's getting dry. It's really dry here lately. Plus I talk too much. That's what the comments say usually. But if you're going to be loading stuff into it and basically covering the the resin and the air bubbles in there, so let's say you're putting pine cones in, or like the sweet gum pods or coffee beans, shredded money. If you're loading that up, there's no way for air bubbles to get out. All right. So, and there's really no way to stir it without creating air bubbles, because you got to mix it into the stuff. So there are just certain things where there's no way to get around it. You have to use pressure. But if you're making things like, so we just made those like handle blanks, and one of them, we just basically had wood on two different sides. At that point, you're not trapping air bubbles anywhere. It was just the whole middle was open. So that's fine. And even actually all of the ones that we did today, you could totally get away without using pressure. But if you want to be guaranteed not to have any air bubbles, then you're going to want to use pressure on these things. And I just think for most things, it's a good investment. You don't have to buy the most expensive one. I recommend not buying the cheapest one either, but they're not that expensive, and it just gives you that guarantee, and it allows you to do whatever you want. And you also don't have to stir all really slow and do all that kind of stuff. It kind of frees up some stuff now, but it is going to take some time. It has to stay in there now, and so there's gives and takes with all this stuff. But I think I've found personally, for me, I always get better results with pressure cast things personally. So. Oh, it's okay, Gene, but it's good for other people to listen to. About a fire? No, it's not going to light on fire. It's not oil. It's just resin, and in like the little tiny amounts of resin like that, it's not going to heat up into anything that's going to cause a fire. I've been doing this for 8 years. I've dumped way more resin than that in there, so I never had a fire or even close to it. My opinion, I don't like the Harbor Freight ones, honestly. They work. I mean, if literally you do not have, if you cannot stretch your dollar farther than that, they'll work. But the clamps are really tiny. The way that the lid clamps on, it's like a pin denting the lid. Doug just did a video talking about that. He replaced his because his lid was getting bashed up. They're junk. You know, this is definitely one of those things where, you know, there's no good deals on these things. You know, the cheapest ones are going to be made with, you know, cheaper materials and less quality control. All right. So my thing is, I think that you're better off going up with like a California Air Tools or the TCP Global. It's got the same type of clamping system as the CA Technologies, which is what I use. And these things, you know, CA Technologies is really good. I think that they're slightly better quality overall than your CA Technology or than your TCP Global and California Air Tools. They have a higher PSI max as well. But I like the clamping system, which all three of those have, where there's like a, let me just get the camera on this so you can kind of see. Let me get you a view of this thing. It just, you know, I've had these things for many years and they're not even wearing at all. No, that's not this one. Okay, so the way this works, there's a big nut. These wing nuts are like twice the size of the Harbor Freight ones, and they're not, you know, uncomfortable to turn, and they spin quickly. The Harbor Freight ones, you could not do that. The screws are terrible. And you got a nice washer here that's mounting onto a flat surface that's welded on. It just, you're not gonna break this stuff off. It's not gonna wear like the Harbor Freight ones. It's like this pin that just dents the lid, and it just, to me, they're just junk. You know, really. And that's what I started with. You know, I'm not gonna lie. That's what I started out with because most people had that, and I didn't have that much money. But quickly, you know, when I realized there was other mounting systems and all that stuff, I switched everything out to CA Technologies. But like I said, CA Technologies is pretty expensive. Most people can't really afford it. And one purchase that I made, the 5-gallon CA Technologies pot, I would not buy that ever again. You can get the CA Tech or the California Air Tools or TCP Global 5-gallon for like half the price. And there's not that much difference in quality. I think that they're all pretty good. But like I said, the max PSI in my CA Technologies pots is 80. I don't know how much of an advantage this is, but you know, I do have a little bit more breathing room with the max PSI than the CA Technology or than the California. They all sound the same. California Air Tools or TCP Global, which I think is 60. Does anybody have one of those two? Is it 60 PSI on those pots? What I really wish, and eventually I want to talk to, Casey's been kind of, he knows somebody at TCP Global. He kind of helped them like test their casting specific pressure pot. And one thing that I wish they would come out with is a 2.5 gallon, because frankly, I don't like the 5-gallon pots. If I can stay away from it, I'd rather use a smaller 2.5 gallon, but nobody makes one of the casting ready, you know, except for CA Technologies pots. So TCP wasn't as expensive. Huh? Now, one thing that I might be getting is TCP Global came out with a 10-gallon pot, I guess, that's like, you know, casting ready, like literally you take it out of the box and it's ready to go. I might be getting one of those. Casey got one, and supposedly he was trying to get me, you know, like TCP Global, he's trying to get the podcast kind of sort of sponsored by them maybe or something. I don't know. It was 80. I don't know if I trust that, but I think it's like 60 is what, well, I think TCP Global, I think that's 60. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I haven't seen the CA Tech or the California Air Tools one. I have a feeling that you'd be okay going to 80, but 60. Oh, so the safety pops at 80. Maximum operating pressure. Yeah, so you really, I don't know. I read that as like, I probably wouldn't go too much farther over 60 personally. I try to, I lean towards the safer side because I never take mine up to 80. I don't know. What's the point? I don't know that there's a big difference. But anyway, so like I said, I think even the Harbor Freight pots, they'll work. Lots of people have been using them. That's all they've used for 20 years. They work fine, but they have some disadvantages, and they're definitely like lower quality than most of the other ones on the market. So there's my take on it. I have a whole video that explains, picking a pressure pot that kind of gives you all that stuff too. If you want to check it out on my channel. But yeah, cool. All right, so I think that's about it, guys. Surprisingly, the FedEx man did not come in the middle of my stream. I guess I'm waiting for so anybody that's kind of new, what I'm waiting for is my dust collector, like the actual thing. And so I guess, I don't know, I got another hour before I go home, but if it doesn't come, then I don't know when it's coming, I guess. Yeah, they are a little bit harder to seal too. That's a good point. I always had problems with that too. My CA Technologies ones, I think one of them might have had, it was a little bit, you just had to make sure that you really gave it a good cranking to make sure that there was it was like a minor leak. But yeah, most of the other more expensive ones, the higher quality ones, they generally are gonna just work better out of the box. The other thing is, if you go with one of either the TCP Global, CA Technologies, I think you still have to do a couple little things to theirs, even their casting ones. But now the California, excuse me, throat's dry. California Air Tools and the TCP Global ones, literally you can take them out of the box, and I think it's pretty much ready to go. Maybe you might have to put on the connector, for your air thing, but that's it. And it's not something that could possibly leak, so it's not like a problematic joint or plumbing joint. You just got to screw one of those things on, probably the male connector. But I actually think one of them has that even in the box. So like it's ready to go out of the box. Harbor Freight, you got to dismantle the whole thing and, put all your parts on there. So a couple of things to think about, it's not only $80 or $100. It's, you got to buy a couple other parts too. And at the end of the day, you can buy, I want to say, did anybody put the price tag in there? I think they're like $240 or something like that, and it's a 5-gallon pot on, I think, both of those. And I think that's about the price tag on those, somewhere in that range. And you get a 5-gallon pot, so you can do larger things. Like you can only fit so much in a Harbor Freight pot because it's small and they're actually skinnier too. The CA Technologies pots, another thing I like about them is they have a pretty flat bottom, and they're wider diameter, so I can fit even more things in mine. That's one of the reasons I liked them. So anyway, guys, enough talk about pressure pots. I appreciate you guys all joining the fun tonight. I can't wait to get these things out. Tomorrow's my day off, so Friday or Saturday I will post pictures of these things demolded. What else is happening? The Pokemon cards, I'll be working on that stuff a little bit more. I got a couple more to do, so over the next couple weeks, we'll be kind of seeing how all these things turned out. Big thank you to everybody that super chatted and helped pick colors and work on these blanks. I appreciate you guys. And so I think that's about it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And we've had a couple of podcast episodes out. So if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, do so on iTunes or any of those things. But we've been having a lot of fun doing all kinds of cool episodes on there. So make sure to check that out. It's me and Casey Martin doing the Resin Cast podcast. So check that out. And anyway, guys, have a wonderful evening. And I will post pictures, be looking on Facebook and Instagram for pictures of these things demolded this weekend, all right? So anyway, I will see you guys on the next live stream next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll do something else. We'll cast something else. It'll be pretty fun. So anyway, guys, thanks again for joining the fun, and I will see you next week.